Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to Divine Allegiance. I'm your host Maulana Baig. Today's topic, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam and establishing Karbala. When we look at the life of Imam Sajjad, he had one of the longest terms of imamate. And when you look at his whole life, it is filled with different events. Obviously, right in the middle of his life was the event of Karbala. And when we see the roles and the things that he have achieved in his life, one of the roles that Imam Sajjad has, other than the normal roles of all the Imams, which is to be the proof of Allah on earth, to be the source of Islam, to be the role model for mankind, and the representative of Allah on earth, other than the normal roles that all the Imams have, one of the specific roles that Imam Sajjad had that defined his life was in the aftermath of Karbala. When Karbala happened and the shahadat of Imam Hussain and his children and companions happened, now the aftermath of Karbala was very important and crucial because the narrative that Yazid and his system were portraying was something completely different than what had happened. When we look at the stories that were being told in the different courts that the soldiers and the generals had gone to, and they were trying to explain to Ibn Ziad and Yazid as to what happened, they made the whole incident seem like that Yazid's people were brave and courageous and they went to fight, and Imam Hussain and his soldiers were weak and cowards who were running away. This was the narrative that they were giving. And in that, you see Imam Sajjad's role come to life. Imam Sajjad was given the role to make sure that the incident of Karbala, the event of Karbala, does not change. It remains authentic. It remains the way it happened. And this is something that Imam Sajjad was given the role to do. And not just at that time to keep it clear to everyone as to what happened, but also after Karbala to keep it alive amongst the people, to give the message, the true message and the spirit of what had happened and what is divine providence behind it, so that the people from there will be able to take that as a trust and give it to the next generations coming after them. So let's look at how Imam Sajjad kept Karbala alive and established it in history and amongst the people. In every event that happens, any event that happens, there are certain main questions that every reporter or journalist would want to answer correctly, and they always look after the basics. The details come later, but the basics must be established first. And these are in the basic questions as to what happened. Where did it happen? When did it happen? How did it happen? Who was involved in it? And why did it happen? These are basic questions of every reporting, every journalist who wants to find out about any event. And this is the basic structure of the event. After this, there are many details that come, comments that come, opinions that come later. But the basic structure is this. If the basic structure is changed, then it doesn't matter what the details are. It will always be corrupted, because the basic structure has to be kept strictly accurate. And that's why they look for the answers to that. Now, when this incident of Karbala happened, on one side was Imam Hussain and the few companions that he had, and the other side is Yazid, the state, the Khilafat, the army, the media, the whole system is there on the other side. So when the actual battle happened, it was a pretty much one-sided affair. It was not an actual battle, it was a massacre. And so when we looked at that, we see that there was no one to report from the side of Imam Hussain and to tell his side of the story. But the media and the state, they had their own narrative of what was going on. Now, Imam Sajjad at first had to make sure that all the information, the basic information of Karbala is accurate. And that is what we see him doing. As a prisoner, in chains and shackles, with the women and children by his side, as he's taken from city to city, village to village, intersection to intersection of major roadways, thoroughways, as spectacles. With all of this whole tragedy that we speak about, in the midst of that, there's something that Imam Sajjad is doing. And that is amazing to see. In the midst of all of these tragedies that are happening around him, which is very difficult for people who are honorable to be dragged around like that. And that too, the family of the Prophet, who have been given respect and honor by Allah. And so for them to be humiliated and disgraced and be dragged like that, it is in itself this huge tragedy that's happening. But in the middle of that, there's something that Imam Sajjad is doing, and this is amazing to see. Look at his sermons and his short khutbah and sermons and speeches that he's giving at every roadside, to every group of people, to every group who gathers together in a market. Imam Sajjad or Bibi Zainab, to back him up, take the chance and take that opportunity to deliver a message to the people. And you see that they don't cry out in emotional ranting. The issue is not about ranting and saying how terrible these things were. The true message behind these sermons that we see and these speeches that we see is to accurately establish the foundations of Karbala, the basic questions: what, when, where, who, how, and why. These are things that have to be established. That's why when you look at the khutbah of Imam Sajjad, everywhere he go, he would start off by saying, if you know me, so you know me. And if you don't know me, then you should know that I am the son of the grandson of the Prophet. I am the person who is born to this family, my grandfather is this, my this is this. Establishing first the identity of the people that are being taken around, so that the media doesn't just say, or the state media doesn't just say, oh, these are just lost people that we got, some kuffar that we captured in a war and jihad. Everywhere he went, he established the fact that the people who are being taken are the family of Rasulullah. That we are the family of Rasulullah. That we are the family of the Prophet. I am the son of Hussain. And then after that, saying that Hussain was martyred. And this is how he was killed. To make sure everyone understands what happened, where it happened in Karbala, and how it happened. Just the basic, that he was killed unjustly, wrongfully, and establishing the very foundation so that the story doesn't change. That the state and the state media doesn't change the story. Everywhere he goes, he's speaking of these basics. To let everyone know what happened, where it happened. Why? Because it was necessary to make sure that the story doesn't change. Because Yazid was capable of that. If Imam Sajjad did not do that, then the state was just ready to give a whole different picture of what happened. They were going to say that Imam Hussain got lost in Karbala and he ended up there without water for his family and children, and they died of thirst. How sad. And how bad that would be. That is so sad. And we all mourn him. Let's read a Fatiha for him. That would have been the situation. They would have just said that Imam Hussain just committed suicide because he had no other way out. That is what they were capable of doing. But Imam Sajjad, by these speeches that he gave, and everyone who came there heard that and they related that, made his own media and made sure that the foundations of the facts remain intact, that they don't change. Details might be different, but the foundation doesn't change. So this is the amazing miracle Imam Sajjad performed. Truly, if you look at it, there was no one from Imam Hussein's side to tell Imam Hussein's story or even to relate it to the people. If Imam Sajjad did this afterwards, it wouldn't have mattered. Because then people would say, well, no, he's trying to justify what Imam Hussain, it was his mistake, and so he's his son, he's trying to justify his father's action. He didn't wait he knew that he needed to do it right now. Because when the story is fresh and people are hearing it for the first time, they will listen to that and they will see that. And before Yazid or the media could twist that story and put a spin on that story, Imam Sajjad clarified it for the people so no spinning would work after that. It is amazing. It is a phenomenon how Imam Sajjad did that. Look at the event of Karbala as compared to the event of Ghadir. Event of Ghadir, 124,000 people there, all Hajis, Muslims, and they all witnessed the Prophet announcing that Imam Ali is the Khalifa, and Rasulullah then made the people congratulate Imam Ali, so there was no doubt as to what this was happening. And with all those witnesses that are there, until today, Ghadir is still doubted. You have to prove Ghadir happened. You have to dig deep and show the people that this incident actually happened. But Karbala, where there's no witnesses from Imam Hussein's side, you see, is such a fact that no one is able to deny it. This is the miraculous journey of Imam Sajjad from Karbala to Sham. He made that happen. And he did that through all the difficulties that were happening, through all the hardships that were going on. So this is the first thing Imam Sajjad did, establishing the facts of Karbala. Then the spirit of Karbala and the culture of Karbala is going to come later. He's going to establish that, and he's going to do that in a different forum. And when you see that forum, you will see in so many places, we have heard how he kept Karbala alive. Everything, his whole life was focused on the mission of keeping Karbala and making it a part of a people's and believers' life. So it should not be just some historical incident that happened, but rather something that is alive and that is keeping us alive, that will keep believers alive as long as they keep it alive. This is what Imam Sajjad then kept on doing. How? For example, you will see everything that he was doing, everything in his life was about reminding the people and keeping it alive for them. Every Imam used to have a ring that they would have. And it was a habit then that people would have a ring, and that ring would have some saying on it. And like Hasbi Allah, or for example, it will have La ilaha illallah or Allahu Akbar, something like that. And so the Imam Sajjad also had a ring, but then after Karbala, he changed the inscription on that ring, and the new inscription said Shaqiya Qatilul Hussain, that Hussein's killer is wretched. He is batil. He is wrong. He's an oppressor. He is a criminal. In other words, Imam Sajjad could not say openly that the Khalifa is a criminal. But in that ring, everyone knew that it was Yazid who ordered the killing of Imam Hussain. But he always had that ring with him to show the people, not by words, but by his action and what he's doing, that who's responsible for the killing of Imam Hussain, for his father's killing. That Yazid is shaqi. He is wretched. He is wrong, and he's a criminal for doing that. You see, that's a form of action that he took in order to make this happen. This is how Imam Sajjad was keeping things alive. When he, for example, would be in a gathering amongst people, a child would come and he would look at the child and start crying. And people would say, "Why are you crying looking at this child?" And he would say that this is the child of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. This is Abbas's son. And you know who Abbas was? Abbas was loyal to my father, to the Imam of his time. He was faithful, and we are grateful to him. He's my uncle, and I'm grateful to him. You should know who he is. And he would go on praising Hazrat Abbas in front of the people, speaking of him, so that the memory of Hazrat Abbas doesn't go away, that it spreads. His stories spread, the fables of who he was, that heroic image of Hazrat Abbas is not something that we made up. It is something that Imam Sajjad established in the people and that we carry with us. It's not something that Shias just, made up some sort of a mythical hero. It was a reality that Imam Sajjad, because Imam, being Masoom, do not just exaggerate things or speak emotionally. They speak accurately and exactly as to what is reality. And that Abbas, Hazrat Abbas was a superhero and this amazing personality. And Imam Sajjad used to speak about him all the time, every time. And people got used to that. And those stories now became a reality for people. He would say, for example, and these are these that I'm mentioning to you that are authentic, that are there. There are others also that you hear a lot of times from speakers, but I'm giving you this so that that how Imam Sajjad kept Karbala alive, establish it in the hearts and minds and souls of people. He would say to people that there are 3 dark days for the family of the Prophet, very dark days, hard days for the family of the Prophet. And when he would say that, people will be interested to know, what are those 3 days? He said, the first day is the day of Uhud. Why? Because that's the day when our uncle, the uncle of the Prophet, Hamza, was killed, and his heart and his liver was taken out. This is how it was. And so that happening, they looked at that. People would say, okay. And the second day was the day of Muta, the battle of Muta, where Ja'far al-Tayyar was martyred and he was killed. It was a dark day for the Prophet, and the Prophet mourned Hamza, and he told others to mourn Hamza. He mourned Ja'far al-Tayyar, and he asked others to mourn Ja'far al-Tayyar. And then everyone would be now, okay, so what is the third day? They would be excited to know. They would be interested to know that. And then he would say, the third day is Karbala, is Ashura. La yawma ka yawmaka, ya Aba Abdullah. There's no day like your day, O Hussein. La yawma ka yawm al-Hussein. There's no day like the day of Hussein, Imam Sajjad would say. This was a hard day for the family of the Prophet. There's no day like that when Hussein has been killed like this. And he would describe and tell the people about the martyrdom and about how it happened. A lot of the maqtal that we have and the tragedy that we have is from these speeches of Imam Sajjad, and how he would describe to the people and tell them in detail as to what would happen. This is how he established the details, and in those details became the spirit and the culture of Ashura in Karbala. Imam Sajjad, 35 years he lived after Karbala. 35 years through many tyrant rulers, but he kept Karbala and he established it and he made it a part of the life of this nation and made sure that it will never be corrupted and that it will always be something that not only are we supposed to keep alive, but by keeping it alive, it is giving life to us. Thank you for watching. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.